We have made it this far. Look at all that. We have made it this far. We have come a long way, journeying through so much of who we be, understanding how we're manifesting in the world, discovering what real happiness actually looks like. Most of us may or may not really understand the depth of what real happiness is. Some of us have an idea. I'm shedding everywhere. Some of us have an idea that happiness means that we don't struggle, or that like everything is light and love everywhere, right? Well, real happiness actually isn't that. Like we've been able to discover these past 40 days, happiness is actually a skill of the moment. It's a skill of finding meaning, of discovering spirituality, your own spirituality, and like how does your spirituality play in the spirituality of others? How do you interact in the world? What are you here to do? So it's kind of a purpose exercise even, huh? Get some good smudge going. Clear the energies for these last 40 days, or actually support the energies for the last 40 days, getting them in line. Ooh, yeah. Smudge for you. More smudge for you. Yeah, you need a little bit more. Yeah, just chill there for a second. There you go. So, oof, that felt so good for a sec. Ugh. So, I notice a lot of people recap, I notice a lot of people are catching up, which is perfectly fine. This challenge is meant to do that. I give a lot of days to ethically be able to integrate things, and some of these days that we spend on integration are purposeful in the slowness of it. Sometimes we think that we always have to keep going and moving forward and doing things, and in reality, sometimes we just need to explore and then come back and allow things to resettle and then go and explore again. Because we can only explore as far as our foundation will take us, right? The level of understanding of the world around us is based off of our education of the moment, of education of what's around us and how we perceive it. And so if we don't allow the time for our foundation to shift internally, and sometimes we don't know what that feels like. Sometimes it just feels like today I'm a little annoyed, right? And maybe that's the old foundation leaving you, or maybe you're making sense of some new parts of your foundation and it sucks to leave some of the old stuff behind, right? And as this new stuff comes in, we might be feeling insecure or unsure of where we're navigating, and that's okay. That is perfectly okay. Some wisdom from Mama Kia, the moon, is that even though it's dark out, the moon is still there. It's always in some type of phase, right? Either it's a full moon or a new moon. And things are always changing. So the active part, the full moon comes in, we can see the moon, you can see it moving through the sky. And then when it goes to new moon, you don't see it at all. And that's the part that I'm talking about, is like, we have to open up to the possibilities of this new slate that's in front of us. And if we don't create room to do that and spend time for the settling of things, then we'll get really caught up. And you'll find yourself to be overwhelmed instead of just like whelmed, So go ahead and honor your path. If you need a day or something to integrate an assignment, or maybe you want to do 2 days or 4 days within one day, that's perfectly fine. And then just maybe allow a couple days for you to integrate, right? Maybe you have a little bit more time to dedicate in that space. And that's perfectly okay. This is your journey. However you tackle it is up to you. And I'm here with you for 90 days to transform your life so that you let go of what holds you back, and you can now navigate forward in a space of like, wow, I do know a lot of tools to help my happiness, right? And when you want further help to navigate your scenarios, your stories, maybe you need energetic releases or anything of that nature, you come to me and I'll help you with that kind of stuff. Maybe there's even a part of your perceptions you're having a hard time with, and that's perfectly okay. And I can come to you, or we can work together, and we can illuminate the confusion right there. We can allow it to settle and integrate within you so that you can show up, manifest it as the new being that you are. So with that being said, going into my list over here, going into day number 40 is powerful. We're using the previous 9 days of exercises of perception building and understanding and navigation to now actively put it into practice. So there's a lot of downtime, so to speak, or internal time is spent on understanding what happiness is and how it navigate or how it manifests in our life, how it's cultivated in our life, based on the hardwiring that we have, right? And when we understand that hardwiring, that's when we get to say, oh, okay, I get it. Now I'm going to change or shift things that is going to be more in alignment for my greatest and highest good, and whatever that is to you. So part of that is like, what is your greatest and highest good? Holy moly, right? So understanding it's okay to take these slow things, and then we're going to go into the big thing, like now. So for today, your assignment is to write down, I wrote them down on this green piece of paper here, all of the previously associated words that were either negative or positive, and I'm going to go through that list one more time real quick. Delight, forgiveness, respect, benevolence, fairness, admiration, resentment, vigilance, lust, greed, bigotry, and hatred. You can add other words to this list if that's something that you want to do that that helps to expand who you are. Hi, Dundos. Are you going to come settle with us? Dundos, come on. It's safe. Yeah, yes, you can come in here. Yes, hi, puppies. Hi, good boy. I guess he wanted to come and lend you guys some hands, too. We got Tolkien in here, too, but you just can't see him. He's on the floor. Hi, good boy. Yes, I know. Can you go lay down now, please? Oh, thank you for your kisses. Thank you for so many kisses. What a good boy. Good boy. Yes. You want to lay down? Come lay down, or you just want to stay there? Okay, you're going to stay there. I'll just pet you until you leave. So, write down those words on a piece of paper. I chose front and back. I just separated them. Whatever, I like organization in certain ways. So you can put them in your pocket however you want to for your whole day. It could be on the paper like this. It could be on a receipt. Be a little more mindful if you can. And when you're going throughout your day, we're paying attention to how your perceptions are showing up. So this is a moniker of remindfulness, of mindfulness, to keep you in the moment of like, oh, how am I showing up? And so maybe you're going to the grocery store, okay? And you're walking in, and you now are front-loaded with the awareness that you will experience a myriad of different events coming forward, from introductions to people to confusion and finding things maybe, or creativity and discovering like how you want a recipe to go together for tonight's dinner, or maybe you're picking up some comfort foods or whatever it would be, right? Well, there's a whole list of events that are about to play out, okay? And we've already chosen to engage in these events when we chose to go to the store, so to speak. And this plays out in any event. So I've chosen to go somewhere, and now whatever is about to happen is quasi already manifested for me because I chose to go at this time for whatever reason. I chose to go with this mindset, right? With these current emotions that I'm working with this current body, this current tiredness level. We've chosen all of these things. And as we go there, all of the events that are supposed to take place or that will take place will. And our consciousness can't really grasp all of those things, but we can be conscious, or we can use those moments and discover how our perceptions are playing out, and then be conscious of rewriting those perceptions, okay? So we've already discovered what it feels like to have those perceptions in our energy field and internally, okay? And maybe we've done some pictorial associations. We've done the tapping to release some stuff, some blockages. And so now we're choosing to go somewhere today, and events are going to play out that are meant for our greatest and highest good, to help improve us, to help us grow into who we be, and how, and by who we be, what I mean by that is the manifestation of your soul self, so to speak. Before I get into that, there's a lot I'm going to cover today. So probably half an hour video, just FYI. So we're going to the store, and we're set with this energy field, right? And that means that we're going to engage in certain things. Chances are some of the engagements will be reflective of an experience that is on this card. And so when we walk in, maybe I want to be able to actively experience benevolence for everything that's there. And so I will go into one of the previous days, use an activity to generate benevolence, so to speak, like a reassociation, observation, so to speak. And I will walk in and I will start to practice that, okay? Maybe I want to do respect or forgiveness even. Maybe we could do forgiveness somehow because let's say we're at the store and we're waiting in line and we have a judgment about somebody, such as they're fumbling through and they can't find their payment device, whatever that would be. And we, for some reason, have a judgment upon them about like, oh my goodness, they're making me wait here too long, you know? They put so many items in their basket. Why do I have to get behind these people? Those are all judgments right there. And what we can do is switch that around and go into forgiveness in saying, because this is really only for you, like, oh, I'm going to forgive myself for judging that person. And so now you're engaging in forgiveness, and you're creating a calmness in your environment instead of this crazy energy that's really negative about judgment and that's hyping you up and about expectation and all these other things. I'm going to go, you know what, I'm going to forgive myself for doing that. And maybe they feel like they are doing something wrong. And before you even start a judgment, just because you notice that they feel like they are judging themselves or judging in the moment, you can automatically present some forgiveness. And you can just be like, oh no, you're perfect. Thank you for allowing me this time to calm down today. Whoa, that's really different, right? Even if you are on a time schedule, even if you have to be somewhere, you can choose to do this, okay? So I'm going forward and throughout this experience of going through the market, the grocery store, whatever it would be, and I'm noticing every interaction that I'm having, even from walking next to somebody in the produce department or down an aisle or something like that. I'm going to notice how I perceive the world, and if there's a space in there that is not producing an outcome that's beneficial for me, such as I'm ruminating upon it for too long, it's deregulating me in a very disruptive way, such as you can't find an ingredient for your recipe, and so you think that your entire dinner is ruined. That is a mind frame. That's a perceptual understanding, and that probably would go with resentment, because now you have to come up with something new, and for some reason you resent this process, right? And is that really that beneficial for you? It's a big teacher to understand that you're taking a little bit too much real estate out in the moment of this suffering, and instead we could be discovering, wow, maybe there's something else on the menu for tonight. Interesting. Plot twist. Or maybe the universe is asking me to go to a different store for some other reason, whatever it would be. And then we get into the receptivity of that and go, okay, so I am supposed to go to a different store. I still want this meal. I don't want to deviate from my plan, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and follow the universe, and I'm going to go to a different store. Great. And so in that space, you're also respecting. There's fairness there, and you're avoiding. I could talk about like greed of the moment, trying to monopolize your time, thinking that every single moment you have is cannot be wasted. Okay, like it has a certain monetary value or some qualitative value that you cannot waste. And why is that, right? And so that's kind of like greed of the moment. Like I have to have all of this time dictated by all of my control, right? That's really interesting. And if that just takes so much energy to do, to control everything around you, and it really inflates our egos. And when something, when a misstep happens in that type of scenario, we suffer greatly, right? So instead, I'm going to get it and go, wow, maybe I don't need to control all of my time, right? And I can actually allow for more time in my day just to explore and be like a kid, and so to speak, be like, wow, this is interesting, new plot twist, new plot twist, new plot twist. And then in that space, I'm looking for the adventure of life, right? My perceptions are shifting now. So your experience through this is going to be a little bit different, obviously, from what I've described, because it'll be personal to you. go ahead and share this video. Comment about your experience of changing up your perceptions and how it operates for you. And you notice how I reflected upon the card and I said, wow, what is this moment revealing to me? And maybe you come across a moment that you don't have a word for, or you can't connect it to one of these, right? And you could go, oh, okay, so I'm going to write it on either in the positive or the negative connotation words, and then I get to explore that. Pretty cool. You already know how to generate the perception of that just by taking a few moments and listening to it, seeing what comes up in your mind, and all of these things. You could do that while you're just waiting in the middle of an aisle and allow people to look at you weird if you feel like it. I mean, that would brighten their day, kind of like, well, that's kind of funny. Maybe somebody will put you on TikTok. Who knows? So go throughout your day, talk about your experience in changing these perceptions around, okay? You don't have to talk about all of the perceptions of the day. Maybe just one big one that stood out to you that gave you more perception, let me reword that gave you more integration of who you are within your body, your mind, your emotions, and your spirit. Okay? So that's like the soul self coming through. And I want to talk about that now for a second. Make sure I got this in line. Yes. So a lot of us go throughout the world and we think that people are operating on a certain level or operating from a certain directive, okay? And oftentimes we're like, wow, I want to integrate what my soul is here to do with how I'm showing up in the world. And that's beautiful, and that is something that I want you to do. That is something that all of us want to do. The part that we get caught up in is sometimes we forget that the soul representation of people, the divine self of somebody, is overlaid by the ego. Or sometimes we could call that the personality. And when we try to define what a personality is, we discover that it's a malleable thing. Interesting. We've gone through perceptions. That's part of your personality. And when we own the malleability of personality, we can understand that a personality perhaps is only there to reflect to us who we are, or is a mirror for us, so to speak, because we can engage in this personality and it's going to react back to us about our personality, okay? Our soul self gets to come through when the shadow or the ego doesn't project into the world, okay? When we understand how it's projecting, we can see beyond it and see the divine of life. We can see the meaning of life. This is a shamanic view of life, if you haven't figured it out yet. So there's other modalities that are other traditions of life that use this way, that use this too. But just speaking from the shamanic view of understanding that the shadow represents in many spaces, and if we can look beyond that, we can actually see the divine self and how it's manifesting in the moment for us, with us, through us, and in connection to us. And so just because somebody comes at us and they have a certain vibration or personality doesn't mean that they don't have a divine self, that they don't have just as many aspirations of goodness, of benevolence as you do, right? They just have a certain lot in life that they're fulfilling in this moment because it's their journey. And so what we can understand about when we engage in situations, and especially situations that are repetitive to us, we've all been there and said like, oh, I thought I already dealt with this. Man, what's going on? And in reality, what's happening is that their personality is mirroring back to you your shadow. Holy moly, right? It's mirroring back to you your active participation with the universe, how you're doing that, okay? It's mirroring back to you how the projections of things are going on. And generally, when we are frustrated or agitated by somebody, it's because our shadow is being reflected in that mirror, and it's showing us our deep longing, okay? Maybe we have a longing for acceptance, love, connection, for vitality, for creativity, expression, whatever it is. And when we have the longings for those things, when we feel like they're lacking within us, or they're subconsciously lacking within us, then we might come from a place of hurt when we see somebody violating those same things, such as if I want to be let's say I want to be super creative and without bounds, so to speak, and I get mad because somebody is trying to control a situation or put parameters on a situation, and I want to experience my full creativity. Well, chances are there's other parts in your life that you're not experiencing your full creativity, and your reaction to being presented with these parameters is the shadow hurting. It is the internal part of you understanding that you have longing to experience a space that's outside of this. And so the situation is presenting itself so you can come through in an authentic moment with integrity, with balance, okay, with the world around you. And by balance, I mean to not throw things into chaos, okay? Throwing things into chaos would be such as confronting the person, perhaps you're taking a painting class and you're wanting to be creative and they're saying, oh, you must paint a sunflower today. And you don't want to do that and you're upset or whatever. And so in the moment you're being upset. Well, in reality, maybe it's being presented so that you can find out how to be creatively expressing while painting a sunflower, okay? How can you live with parameters and still be creative? Because that is how we would get to be creative. Not when we're free to be creative with no bounds. We have to learn how to be creative within the bounds of a structure. Otherwise, we wouldn't be pushed to define further the container or the structure that's presented for me, right? I want to know the bounds of what I'm doing. And if I don't have any creativity to express that, then I might just feel frustrated and not want to paint, period. Wow. That's an interesting story that's going to stop you from enjoying the moment when we could be like, wow, you know what? I'm going to practice forgiveness for myself for being angry. I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'm feeling resentment because I could be doing something else. I'm going to let that go as well. And then maybe I'm feeling vengeful for some odd reason because I'm like, I really don't want to do this. And if you make me do this, X, Y, and Z is going to happen, such as I ruin my own painting. Whoa, that's weird. A weird way of being vengeful to yourself for participating in your own growth. Huh. Odd how our shadow and our ego shows up for us. And so I could go, wow, I want to experience more delight in this moment, so I'm going to change my perception. I'm going to go, what is the meaning of this moment? How is this moment helping me to enrich my life right now? And if we can't find those situations, like we're so in dangerous bounds, then that is possibly a different scenario. This is, of course, just a story, me coming up with a situation. But if your situation is something that is asking you to own your sovereignty, maybe you do need to remove yourself from that situation, okay? That would obviously be not one maybe with creativity, although I could say, oh, I'm going to creatively show my own sovereignty in painting perhaps a different type of sunflower or using a different color palette, right? And so in that way, I am being delightful. I'm respecting my time. I'm creating enjoyment or benevolence for the moment. I'm being fair with myself, and I'm showing admiration for my ability to not allow my emotions to deregulate me, right? So the other part that I want to talk about lastly with this, and this has to do with like, do we feel like this is difficult to do, and should I be doing this? And that's a question that comes out, and it often it's been taken out of context quite a lot about like difficulty and suffering, so to speak. And the wisdom of understanding that how should I say this? That pain or suffering are two different things is quite an exploration. And when I'm approaching a situation and I feel pain or I feel discomfort, I feel maybe discouragement, or I feel like it's difficult to do, like it's tough for me to finish this book or whatever, we might have an aversion to finishing it. And is that appropriate? Because some of us will be like, well, if it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to engage in it. And the reality of that is perhaps this discomfort is meant to show you something more. Because there is a difference between having a difficult path and the wrong path. The wrong path meaning that you should move around and not do that path. You should navigate away from that path, right? And that means that it's not for your greatest and highest good. It's going to manifest a lot of chaos, and it's going to have a lot of shadow in it. Whereas a difficult path for right now, it may be difficult, such as I need to get through this book in XYZ a small time frame, or I need to create something in a small time frame, or I need to engage in a new skill, and that's difficult to learn. Whatever it would be. Maybe working out is difficult for you, and you don't understand specifically that just because it's difficult, that doesn't mean that it can't be included in your path, okay? Because oftentimes those difficult moments are the ones that are requiring us to play bigger, okay? The wrong moments are getting us to engage in activities that are not for our greatest and highest good. So they may be aberrant activities that create a lot of chaos in the world, or they activate even more shadow in the world. So just ponder that for a little bit, okay? Just because something feels dysregulating or upsetting doesn't mean that you have to completely abandon that path or avoid it, okay? Chances are, when something feels difficult, the universe is asking you to lean into it. A lot of times we feel fear, okay? And there's the difference between like feeling fear and feeling anxious for something. They originate in two different parts of the brain. And so we can't say that just because I'm anxious to do something that I should be fearful for it. And also we cannot say that just because I'm fearful of something means that I'm anxious over it, okay? It's a really complex kind of area to navigate, but understanding that your journey is meant for you to unfold. And if you need help, reach out. Find your family, find your tribe, whatever it would be. You can reach out to me or your friends. That's also why we post, okay? It's a really big reason on why we do the posts is to engage our audience and find who our tribe is, who is rooting for us, and who's interested with our growth and exploration in life. So as we're doing this, understand that there is a big difference between a difficult part of your path and you being on the wrong path, okay? Generally, those are revealed to you upon further exploration, right? Leaning into fear could bring you to a more creative moment to understand that, whoa, maybe I don't need to write a book about X, Y, and Z. Instead, I'm writing a book about this. Who knows, right? Being able to be malleable in that also prevents us from thinking that we are following the wrong path. When your life is meant for you to unfold, nobody can tell you what that is except for you, and how you interact in the world. So, big prompts to everybody who feels like there's difficulty happening in that you're going through it. Okay, if you're avoiding or things like that, ask yourself, why am I avoiding? And then maybe reach out. You can even post, why am I avoiding this? May have given you a hint to a future date. Whoops! Sorry about that. But anyway, go ahead, write these down, put them in your pocket, do the share, do the post, see how this works for you, okay, in changing your perceptions around life. And what else can I say for today? I talked a lot about the Shamanic Happiness Workshop, the Shamanic Manifestation Workshop. That's coming up on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Again, if you have any questions on that, reach out. It is a way for us to really understand actively through kind of me coaching everybody in the moment, actively engaging people in activities to discover who they are, their authentic self is. And also, what does it look like, obviously, because we're in a world, to be in service, right? We're in a world that has a lot of people. So how are we in service? Because that brings us to the understanding of meaning and contribution. And those are things that are fundamentally part of our nature. So, excuse me. So this workshop is meant for you. It is in service for you to expand yourself, to understand yourself further, to understand how does your biology show up for your emotions and your mental state and your physical. How does that work in with creating an overall life and the future that you have? For this one, the goal is to set up a future for just the year. Like, what are your goals for the year? So it's a little more finite, but it's there to support you for the full year. to understand, like, oh, okay, so in January I'm doing this, in February I'm doing this, right? And it continues on so that you don't have to think too much into it. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So, without further ado, if you have any questions, reach out to me. With light and love, namaste. Go about your day with happiness and explore. Yay! And I will see you tomorrow for day 41. Yeah, yeah.